Greetings and welcome to another River Radio Sports Central podcast powered by our friends at NovaCare Rehabilitation. Alongside Matt Varney from 103.5 ESPN, I am Darren Kinnard. And here we are on the Tuesday after the 3A Super Sectionals that saw Glenwood beat Centralia 2-1. The Annies were the last area team standing.
Right.
The 24-25 high school seasons are complete.
Yeah, the marathon is over. You feel it more than I do, but it's been a heck of a school year. I mean, we were just talking in the back about, how it really felt there for all of yesterday's game that Centralia had a chance, felt like they should potentially be playing later this week in the state championship. But, you're in the top 8. You're going to run into some pretty darn good teams, and things sometimes don't break your way. But a great season for the Annies, and I know we'll get to Carterville as well. But, yeah, looking at yesterday's game, I mean, to keep Chatham-Glenwood to 2 runs, first of all, in my mind, is fantastic. Of course, they've had a great pitching staff all year long, Centralia has. And then their only run in the game comes on a solo shot. That fantastic job on that as well. Right. Again, a lot of teams are good at this point. Someone has to lose, though.
Right, and Glenwood has been number 1 all season long. Yeah. This is a team that has beaten, they beat Carterville twice during the season, just to give for those some perspective. But this game in particular, this is a team that Glenwood came in, I believe, with 59 home runs for the season. Maddie Francis shut them down. She was phenomenal. Gave up 2 runs, but both were unearned, and that's what hurts if you're Centralia. But Centralia had base runners all over the place in that game, including bases loaded in the 6th, had 2 on in the 7th, so the winning runs were on base, and the right people were up. Kinsley Hawthorne, who had homered earlier, she walked as the potential winning run, so she gets on base, and it didn't work out. But again, tremendous effort from the Annies to get there, and we'll kind of work our way backwards, as it has been a crazy 4 weeks as the spring, and we've touched on it before. In football or in the fall, you have football playoffs on generally Friday, Saturday. Yeah. Volleyball's during the week, cross country Saturday morning, so things are spread out and fine.
Yeah.
You get to the winter, you've got wrestling, and then you go girls basketball, then you go boys basketball. It's spread out. Yeah. In spring, they're just like, hey, we're just going to do this all now at the same time. And the last 26 days have been crazy.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we were talking about it 26 days ago about how, it's already here, basically, of postseason. The spring just blows right on through because, fall and winter allow everybody to take their time, and then they look at it like, hey, guys, it's middle of March, and there's about 6 weeks left in the school year, maybe 8 weeks, and then we're done. So let's wrap this up.
Right. And
you're being told about week 2 into spring sports that, hey, time to ramp up, when usually other sports it's like, okay, you got a little bit of time here. Take your time, take a walk a little bit. Yeah, in spring sports it is a dead sprint there towards the end, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, it blows right on by, and now here we are. For us, there's still this weekend for the 3A, 4A state championships, but for us in this area, it's over, and we're just catching our breath right now, looking back on everything and being like, oh yeah, that did happen.
And we'll work our way backwards. And so Monday was the 3A Super. Over the weekend was the baseball and softball 1A and 2A state finals. This is the last year that they're doing the split of 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. Next year it'll be all 4 softball and then all 4 baseball on separate weekends. The only area team that we had make it was Carterville, and the Lady Lions got to the championship game and had a 2-0 lead in the 6th, and on the verge of completing the back-to-back state championships. Gave up a 2-run homer to a young lady who's going to Florida State.
Right.
So there's a reason why she's a Florida State commit. Game ends up going 10 innings. Beecher wins it 5-2. So Carterville finishes second. A tremendous run for the Lady Lions when you consider the group that they graduated the year before.
Right.
And then also when you consider this is a group that had one senior.
Yes.
There's one senior on the roster, and again, there are no guarantees that they're going to make it back next year.
No.
But what a run, and what a what a program that they have developed in Carterville.
Well, yeah, exactly. What a program, because you have a bunch of sophomores and freshmen that were seeing time, and I know that every year it seems like they're like, man, wait till these 8th graders get up here. I haven't heard that this year, but that doesn't mean that also doesn't ring true for them.
I think it still rings true.
I think it does. But so that tells you right there that the next year every single class is going to be contributing somehow, some way. And the ones that aren't are going to be getting seasoning down at the lower levels.
Right.
And so it's right now, Will Cappy and his program is running on all cylinders, and they're going to try to run it as long as they can. They're the cream of the crop in the area for sure, and probably one of the top dogs for the next few years, at least, in IHSA. They're going to be talked about for a long time coming forward and be consistently ranked at the top of the rankings in the preseason.
And I think the reason you see that is after they won the Super Sectional, after they beat Newton 8-0 at SIU, that next day they had a softball camp, a kids softball camp, and it was those players who, you just won the Super, you're getting ready to go to state, and so now they've got this camp for little kids, and they are all engaged, and more importantly, all those little kids, all those little girls are engaged and see their heroes.
Yes.
And so they are biding their time and putting in the work to when they get there.
Yes.
They get to experience, and that's the whole picture is you see how it happens.
That's right. And that's why I've said it a few times here on the podcast, but why I've told several people that, this is a basketball region for sure, without a doubt. Everybody loves the basketball around here, and then you can't forget about football. But softball, baseball and softball, but softball specifically is the hidden gem around here, and it's only growing. You're going to see a lot of good teams. And again, like how we had Carterville and Jonesboro at one point. It was like, man, this feels like it's too soon. It feels like this should be part of the state championship, honestly. Right. But that's a good problem to have, because it just means just how good the scene is around here, that you have two teams that it feels like it should be happening later down the road. When they're meeting that early, it usually means that the scene is growing and that it's a really healthy scene, and that whether it's Carterville next year or it's Anna Jonesboro or it's Pinckneyville next year, if someone makes the state tournament, that's a good thing.
Well, if you get out of the South,
right? Exactly.
You are battle tested, and you're not afraid of anything.
Exactly.
Now, Beecher and Carterville pretty much been 1-2 all year,
exactly.
and so them meeting in the finals was not a surprise,
no.
And the fact it went extra innings was not a surprise. The one thing that I do want to talk about, the downside for me personally, is just the fact of the weather situation.
Yeah.
And my problem, and I want to make this clear, the weather's not why Carterville lost, because both teams played in the weather.
Right. Well, and it went 10 innings also.
And it goes 10 innings. But here's my deal, is the fact that forecast had been the same for 3 days.
Yes.
You have this in a facility, the Louisville Slugger Complex in Peoria, that has 2 stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the reasons why it's there, is you have the ability that if you need to go ahead and play the 2 games, the third place game and the championship game at the same time, if you needed to. Also, when you go to, at state track, the events are scheduled at certain times, and it runs on that schedule unless there's weather issues, and they do what's called the rolling schedule, and you go accordingly. Well, here's how the day went in Peoria. Again, knowing that the forecast called for rain starting at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, both the 1A games go 5 innings.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those were short games and done. Mm-hmm. They did not start the third place game in 2A until 2 o'clock, when it could have started significantly earlier.
Yes.
Also, then just factor in you could have played both of those games at the same time and been done likely before the rain. Now, again, weather is the element that nobody knows for sure. But the radars, I just don't understand why you want to play in the rain when you don't have to.
Right.
And it's just, I thought it was a disservice to all of those involved in the game, because, whether the weather played a factor in a couple of the errors or whatever. Why is that a concern? It shouldn't have been a concern in my mind.
It shouldn't have, and like you said, you have two fields. You should be using both of those every single time, whether or not, in my opinion. The fans that want to see, think about just when you have a changeover on a game, just how difficult that can be for some fans. You know, you buy a ticket, maybe you get in for the full session, or maybe you're like, okay, I'm getting out of here. If you use both of them, then everybody that wants to see the game gets in, gets the seat that they want, and then you probably get done a lot earlier. And maybe that's part of the worry that IHSA says we want everyone there all day. People are going to be there for the game they want to see, and that is it. Just use them both at the same time.
Now the main stadium, I will say that there is a main stadium that has a bigger grandstand and this thing, but both are turf fields. Both are it's not like that. This is just a random field, which I have been up there, and in past years, Massac County played on one of the sides. This is a tremendous facility that has like 10, 12 fields all over the place, but there are two stadium type park, so to speak, and the one is the main grandstand. There's no question, but that's that's what you earn when you play in the state championship game. And there are those that will argue. I will argue with about the third place game being unnecessary and irrelevant. I mean, I think that you should play it. They're there. There's no reason not to play it. But I don't understand why you would choose to play the championship game in rain when you don't have to.
Right. Well, and I'm going to use an example here that doesn't exactly ring true at the state tournament level, but in basketball, how many tournaments do we see? So many tournaments, and every tournament seems to have a loser bracket somehow, some way, and they say, oh, you lost, you're going over to the auxiliary gym. That's just how it is. Now, I know that, it's not at the state tournament level that happens, but also you don't have this issue with weather happening at the state tournament level that you don't have to worry about that. So it makes sense. But at the same time, if you had to worry about something like that, you would relegate the third place game to the auxiliary gym. Like you said, it is a privilege that you have earned to play at that stadium one more time. Whereas if you lost, you still are there at the thing. You're still going to walk away with a medal somehow, some way. But I'm sorry, but you're going to the slightly smaller stadium.
In previous years, in baseball and softball, again, because of weather and because they don't play on Sundays, which that's a whole other topic too, is the fact that the third place game has been shortened. Sometimes they'll play, it's a 5-inning game, or it's been played, hey, we're going to play the championship game first, then play the third place game. If it rains and if the third place game gets rained out, so be it.
Yeah.
I hate that mentality, but at the same point, you got to make sure the championship game is played. And I just didn't understand why you would put it in a situation where it could be a factor with the two best teams playing for the championship.
Yeah, it does not make any sense to me whatsoever. And just like you say, you probably should be playing the championship game first and then go to the auxiliaries after that.
Or use the other field.
Right, exactly. You go to exactly. It's just there's so many different ways that you could go about it. And again, as you say, it was in the forecast for several days. You had time to plan for this. You could have very easily said, we're going to change things up. I understand kind of wanting to stay on course with the session times. I get that to a degree, but at the same time, again, you had 3 days to prepare for this.
If you let everybody know Friday when they left the field, hey, tomorrow, fans, players, teams, be on alert, rolling schedule tomorrow. We are going to play them as they go. Where if your game if it moves up, your game's scheduled at 4:30, it might be at 2:30. You be prepared, be here. And that's and again, it is not why Carterville lost.
No.
That was again a great a 10-inning championship game. It doesn't get much better than that. I know that it didn't end the way Carterville wanted to, but they were two great teams. And have they played 10 times, or would they play 10 times? I suspect it might go 5-5.
I think so too.
I think it might go 5-5. It was that type of game.
The last thing I'll say about the rolling schedule also, though, and I hate to keep going back into basketball season, but when you go to those tournaments, they have the listed times, but when that game beforehand finishes, it's time to go to the next one. You get 15 minutes to warm up, and it's time to go. I've seen several times when I've been broadcasting a game, I see fans that are for one team or another, whether it's Murfreesboro playing against another team or just two completely unrelated teams. I've seen fans walk in with their colors on second quarter, and you can tell on their face, I thought it was supposed to start at this time. Yeah. Well, rolling schedule. It's the same thing. There's so many things that can make things easier. Sessions make sense to a degree, but at the same time, you got to take the weather into account.
Well, and at that facility,
yes,
every team, you've got all these other fields. Hey, you're going to have to do your warm-up on field 2.
Yep.
And so as soon as the game before you's done, we're gonna sweep the field, which it's turf. They got the sweeper.
Yep.
We're gonna take 10, 15 minutes to do that, and then we're gonna do lineups and go.
Exactly.
And they swept the field, and then we stood there for 35 minutes.
Makes no sense.
And waited, and then by the time we started the lineups, guess what? It started.
Mm-hmm.
It started to rain.
Yep.
And again. I'm old and grumpy. Get off my lawn, especially when it's wet. So let's keep moving backward. KZ Westfield ended up getting third. They're a regional team. They get third in 1A in softball. In baseball, we had Marion and Salem both advanced to the Triad 3A sectional.
Right.
Both got beat. Again, rain situation. What a nightmare that was. Sectional semis were 5 rain delays.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where baseball is also different because you got pitchers and warm-ups and the pitch counts and this, that, and the other. But they were bent on getting those games in on Wednesday, which didn't make sense to me. Again, they didn't ask me clearly, but it ended up being an all-day deal, and both Salem and Marion ended up bowing out. When you go back to 1A, 2A, we had Waltonville, Sessa-Valier in the 1A Super.
Yep.
We had DuQuoin in the 2A Super, and both those teams were so close to earning trips to state. 7th inning leads, that walked away, and to lose it in the 7th. What a heartbreaking end to great seasons for both those clubs.
Yeah, I mean, and just the fact that they're both coming from Waltonville, and just it's happening basically at the same time, and just you're walking in that evening saying, well, if we at least get one of them, and with two teams, chances are good, and so for them both to happen in heartbreaking fashion,
right?
Just, oh man, you feel for those people, obviously, and the team specifically, but that's how it goes sometimes. But I mean, just both fantastic clubs, and just it hurt to see those results come in that way, and you see the first one coming, well, they still got a chance on the other field, and then immediately comes in, oh well, I guess we'll hang our hats on the 2A games then.
Yeah, Waltonville, Sessa-Valier lost 4-0 to KZ in the SIU softball. Baseball lost to Pawnee 5-4.
Yeah.
Pawnee ended up getting third in 1A. In 2A, DuQuoin had a 5-0 lead on T-Town.
Yeah.
And then just a situation where they ran out of pitching. And, when you get to that point, we've talked a lot about pitching and the numbers and all this and that. And look, the scouting report I had on T-Town was that, look, this team mashes.
Yeah.
And, Diedrich,
they always do.
Well, it seems like that way. But Diedrich Melvin had shut them down through 5, I think. And then, he ran out of gas, and they didn't have anybody else, and then T-Town was able to walk it off, which T-Town also walked off St. Anthony in the sectional. They were down 4-1 and came back with 4 in the 7th to win. So this was a team that was not a stranger, and then they had the roles reversed on them in the state title game, losing to Sacred Heart Griffin in a walk-off. So.
Figure.
But again, you had Waltonville, Sessa-Valier, and DuQuoin falling in the baseball super. Waltonville softball lost in that super, and then of course Carterville made it to state.
But even with Carterville, because just the fact that everything else that had happened that night, it was like until that final pitch was thrown, it was like, when's the other shoe going to fall for this one too? Because it's just you go in with such high hopes for each of these clubs, and then they all do great in the opening innings, and then all of a sudden something happens for those 3 teams, and so then you look over to Charlotte West Stadium and you're like, Carterville tread lightly, and luckily they took care of business, but it was just like, man, what is going on tonight? Something's in the air.
You hear a lot when you watch baseball about that 27th out being so hard. And in high school, you only play 7 innings. And that 19th, 20th, and 21st out.
So hard.
Baseball and softball, it's just, I can't tell you, it's amazing how hard it is to close out a game. And it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who's pitching. It's tough to get that last out.
The only thing that's tougher than that 27th out is the 28th one, which only a few select pitchers have had to do. Armando Galarraga, the pitcher for Murray last night, just to name a few. It doesn't happen often, though, but sometimes you do have to get 28 outs. But 27, that is probably in most games, that's going to be the toughest one because you're sitting there, even if you got a 5-run lead, you're sitting there be like, I just got to get this one, and we're going home. And sometimes you put that pressure on yourself, and then all of a sudden that 5-run lead becomes a 4 to a 3 to a 2, and then all of a sudden
tying runs at the plate or on base,
and you're like, well, now we have to catch up.
Right.
And so 27 is very difficult. It does not matter how much of a cushion. Obviously, the more cushion, the easier it is, but it's still ridiculously hard because usually those pitchers do put that pressure on themselves of like, just one more and we get out of here. And then all of a sudden things start going awry and then it starts unraveling. But if they get it, it's over and you can go home and sleep on your pillow.
Exactly. Also, since the last time we've had a podcast, because of all the craziness here in the spring, we talked about the girls' state track finals with the Emmas, Emma Bierman and Emma Skeet bringing home state championships. Emma Bierman for Nashville in the triple jump or in the long jump rather, and then Emma Skeet in the for Marion getting the shot put in 2A. Boys state track. We saw several individuals come away with state championships, and one of the best individual performances came from Christ Our Rock Lutheran junior Landon Mitchell, who won the 110-meter hurdles, and he also got second in the triple jump, and so this is a young man that he came into the day he would qualified 8th in the hurdles. And he was the last qualifier, I believe, in the triple jump. And you talk about elevating at the best possible time. He did it on the last day. Yeah. He PR'd in both. And, he comes away with a state championship and a state runner-up. Yeah, I mean, it kind of to change your words there a little bit. I don't have much to add because you said it perfectly, but they talk about peaking at the right time. And especially in track and field. They say, we want you to peak at the right time. Just get to the next stage, and you'll peak there. And, I mean, to hit your peak on the last day of the season, you can't write it up better than that. And speaking of a guy that it's hard to say he peaked because he had such a tremendous year, Tyjair Kellen from Murfreesboro. I know. Undefeated in the 100 all year, and it wasn't like they were going to small meets. They went to the big-time meets, whether it was in Missouri, whether it was the Metro East. He won them all, including a state championship. Yeah. And, in football season, and we kind of saw it this past Friday with the Seca All-Star game, which I'm sure we'll get to for a little bit here at the end. But looking at him, like he has that burst of speed that, you're like, man, he is so fast. I kind of, and I'm sure he'll take a slide from this, I kind of rank Travion Johnson a little bit more in that burst category, but that 100-meter dash, he is just obviously the best in the state at. And I mean, if it wasn't for wind, just being a little bit above the permissible level, he'd have set a brand new state record too. And it was a record that had been up for, I believe, 40-some years, and so... And, I mean, it'll stay there, but his name really should be up there, if nothing else, with an asterisk. Yeah, exactly. Because it was 1 mile an hour over the permissible limit, and I don't know how... 100 meters, that probably plays a significant role, but at the same time, it's from 2 to 3, come on. We can do better here. There can be a margin of error here, and I feel like 1 mile an hour shouldn't make that big of a difference, but apparently, in their eyes, it does. Other state champions, we ended up with 4 from the immediate area. We had, we had Landon, we had Tyjair, and then we had 2 in the field. Chris Nelson won the long jump, and it basically was his first jump because the preliminary results carry over, and his very first jump turned out to be the best of the entire 2A field, so he wins the long jump, and that young man's career bookended by state championships. Yes. He won the 100 as a freshman.
That's right.
He won several. Was part of a couple of relay champions as well. Mm-hmm. And then he finishes up his career with the gold in the long jump. So tremendous way for him to finish out. And then also Mr. Kinsman in the 2A shot put. Andrew Kinsman. He went into the final day with a massive lead, and nobody really got within sniffing distance, and he still went out and bettered his throw on the second day to make it back-to-back state championships. So all told, we end up with 4 individual state champions, and that's pretty doggone cool.
And Carbondale's Owen Lee finished 5th in that as well. And I'm sure we had a couple more local names that finished down the rankings a little bit, but his name stuck out to me, of course. And I mean, his dad posted about it like every single week, so it was hard to miss. But it was great to see him also place in the top 5. That's great. But yeah, for AJ Kinsman to go ahead and do back to back, and I mean, we were looking at it last time that we did the pod. It was day 1, and we were like, yeah, no one's going to catch up to him. And sure enough, no one did. But then he said, well, I can do better. And come on, man, leave a little bit more for everybody else. But, I mean, he just capped off a fantastic career by, again, kind of going out saying, yeah, no one's going to catch that. But then he catches it and does a little bit more. Right. And I believe that's his PR, right? Yeah.
I think he had set the school record before. Yeah. I don't remember what his number was. But you mentioned Owen Lee. He came in like ranked 15th, I believe, and he ends up 5th, and again, a PR there. Some of the other top individual performers, Gabe McLean from Benton was 2nd in the 1600 and 3rd in the 3200. Marion's Raphael Greer was 2nd in the 3200. Adrian Mann from Harrisburg, the defending champ in the 300 hurdles, got nipped at the line, which was tough for him. But again, he PR'd, and we talked about it after with him, and it's like it's hard to be mad when you PR.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Especially, as you say, we got nipped at the end, too.
But to be that close.
I know.
Oh, my gosh.
But still, to PR, even when you probably sit there and say, I didn't give my best performance right there, to PR there still, and to get so close, it's for a lot of these kids that are PRing at state and they don't walk away with the gold medal, it's bittersweet because they're like, I did the best I could, but man, I feel like I should have been able to do just a little bit better one way or another, and he's a prime example right there.
Brody Wilt from Pinckneyville gets 4th in the triple jump for the 2nd straight year. The interesting thing about Pinckneyville is that under the new classifications next year, or the way the shuffle's going, they will be 1A. And this is a group, and again, 2A in track. Again, if you're not familiar with it, 3-class system is brutal.
It's very brutal.
Because you're going from about 400 students to 1,400 students. And so
we talked about it with golf.
Exactly. And for Brody to finish 4th,
That's
now
huge.
Next year, again, it's not a guarantee that you're going to win 1A just because you were a hot shot in 2A, but you like your chances.
Sure.
And so you've got Pinckneyville going down to 1A next year to compete, and so that's going to be a very interesting development. But again, back-to-back 4th place finishes in 2A is again, for lack of a better word, impressive.
Yeah, I mean, if you finish top 5, I consider that's very impressive going back-to-back. Obviously, if you do better than top 5, then that's even better. But to be a top 5 athlete at the state championship in your event, that just goes to show just how good you are. And if you haven't gotten a scholarship offer, that means someone's overlooked you, and you better go ahead and show the tape to somebody. Because even if it's like, well, you had your best day and your other days were, but you're showing I can reach that level. I just need the right amount of coaching. If you're a top 5 in the state, then yeah, you deserve to be getting a look at from the collegiate level in track and field.
And Keaton Cook from Mount Vernon was one of the other medalists in the 110. He ended up finishing 3rd. And again, he was a guy that had qualified, I believe, 8th or 9th, and to up the ante and to come away with a third-place finish. And he's a guy that'll be back. And again, Mount Vernon will be firmly in 2A. That won't be a change there. But as a guy that has got a bronze medal and that experience, it's going to do nothing but help come next year.
It's always great when you see the underclassmen going ahead and medaling, getting a top 3 spot on the podium. Because like you said, that experience is so big. Usually the ones ahead of you are usually ones that are going to be graduating, if not that same summer, then probably before you, because they've got just that tiny bit more experience. Usually that's all it takes between you and whoever medal ahead of you is just the experience factor when you're getting a medal on the podium. So, he'll be definitely better next year and hoping to do better than bronze.
No doubt about that. You mentioned the SICA All-Star game. The football game was Friday night in the rain at Mount Vernon. Great thing that this game is played on turf. So the game went on. You and Dave McKenzie had the call. Tell me about the game. I was in Peoria.
That's right. Russell was able to be there too. But I'll tell you about it. 19-13 was the final score. Blue team wins it. That's the one that's more the kind of I-64 team, if you will. That's what me and Dave were talking about. Just there's Route 13 and then there's I-64. When you look at these two teams and how they're comprised, kind of who's closer to where, kind of is how it ended up being. White team was the Route 13 one, I-64 for the blue team. Great game. We were kind of expecting a much more explosive. We were expecting 27-20 final score somehow, some way, if not more than that, because you look at the offensive side of the ball for both teams, man, there was a lot. But the defense in the first quarter, it was like that. It was a lot of explosive offense, but then the defense finally started getting adjusted a little bit, and it was a big defensive game then from second quarter on, really. Me and Dave learned some of the rule book for the All-Star game at the end because we didn't realize because not Murphy's, bro. I'm thinking of Murphy's because there's so many on the white team and Gary Carter leading, but the white team trailing late. Gibson Fager, great 40-yard pass to Chris Garnett from Massac County. Looked like he was going to Travion Johnson, but Chris Garnett was behind him and was on a rope to him, and just nobody was defending him. It was great. But they go for 2 because you're sitting there being like, you got to go for 2 here. No, it was 31-19 was the final score. Excuse me. But, you got it, or 29-19. But anyways, you're like, you got to go for 2 here if you're going to catch up. 29-19 was the score at that time. If you want to catch up and force overtime, you got to go for 2. Instead, Gary Carter does what he always does, which is be crafty, and they direct snap it to the holder, and then he just falls back on his back, and then me and Dave McKenzie are just sitting there like, something must have gone wrong there. No, the All-Star rules is if you're down by 10 or more, you get the ball back in the fourth quarter. And so we're like, now it's starting to make sense.
Right.
They try, but they're not able to come on back. But it made it a thrilling end. Of course, we were on the blue side of the stands, so we got a bunch of boo birds coming. But me and Dave looked at that is crafty right there. But at the same time, I was like, but now you're going to have to score 2 more times. Right. But I also said, but Gary Carter's probably sitting there saying, I'm going to have to score 2 more times anyway.
Right,
so,
exactly.
But it was fantastic. Preston Baker from Breeze Central was the MVP. He deserved it. He was fantastic all throughout the night. Or no, excuse me, that was Sam McColbaum that won it. But Baker won, I think, the offensive player on the blue team. Great time. Hamilton County, they had a kid that won the defensive player of the game on the blue side. And, for someone that covers mostly the river to river, it was cool to see somebody from Hamilton County come away, and that kid was a stud out there, I'll tell you that much. But it was great to see all these players. Would have been cooler to see some of the other ones, like Toman from Richland County, because they did have Richland County competing as part of the white team, or the blue team, rather. But, again, some of these college coaches are probably sitting there saying, maybe don't. But it was a great night, a lot of fun.
I think we got spoiled last year watching
with
Sisson from Mount Carmel coming and doing things.
And we made the comment also that, and we knew about this going in, but Dan Mings in our pregame interview had mentioned, we got to cycle through everybody, make sure everybody gets to play in the first half. And then the second half is kind of okay, we're playing to win now. But we made the observation of, well, Sisson was the only quarterback. So they were like, oh, yeah, I guess they might have built it a little bit to where we're going to only play Blaine at quarterback. We got some guys that maybe we can turn to if we need to, if something happens, but Blaine's going to be our only quarterback.
Yeah.
And so we're like, Dan Mings might have played little games there, but you know what? It was the right decision because they won that year, and they win this year with a host of Breese Central players. That was their most, and then they had some Mount Vernon players, of course. And
right.
it was a fun game, though, a great night. And again, you saw a bunch of offensively great players. And in high school, those are the playmakers, they're the difference makers. Defense is a lot of them aren't the same level that you need, that you see at the difference maker at the next level. A lot of them are playing two ways. Right. But it was a fantastic night, a lot of fun. And me and Dave made the remark of, we don't have someone we're pulling for here. We're just calling for a great game. A great game. Dave's got the highlights now up on his YouTube. We shared them on both of the social medias. You can find it. And it's not the full 3-hour game. If you want to listen to the full 3-hour game, it's on 1035ESPN.com. But he made just a 50-minute compilation of basically every play. And it's awesome to go back and look at.
My son played in that. That would have been back in, I believe, 2017. Yeah. In 2018 summer, and as a guy that he had no aspirations to play in college. It wasn't going to happen. For a lot of these guys, Friday night, that was the final time of playing. And for those that are fortunate enough to be able to go on and play in college, it's tremendous. But for a lot of guys, it was the last time that they get to put on that uniform and they get to represent their school with the helmets.
Yes.
The helmets were all the school helmets, and so to go out one last time is a very neat experience.
And it is true that it's for a lot of them, it's the last kind of game for them in an organized football league of some kind. But I was mentioning on the broadcast, and then when I was going home, I was thinking about it more, and even now I'm thinking about it more. There was actually, I think, a lot more guys that are going to be playing in college than you normally would see in a game like that. Yeah, we didn't get Tolman from Richland County and a couple other guys, but Gibson Fager's going to SEMO. Right. Owen Rand's going to SIU. Preston Baker from SEMO and his good buddy Griffin Becker are both going to North Central and Naperville. Those are just to name a couple of them. There's a lot more that are going to the next level, and it's great to see them all just suited up. And it got chippy there for a little bit, but then it kind of came back down being like, hey, guys, remember, this isn't for the state championship or anything. And someone that impressed me that is also going to the next level, Tiffin Kazukis for Ben. He was the first one out there for the white team playing quarterback. And if you turn on that highlight reel, it's going to be in the first 2 minutes. You're going to see maybe first 3 minutes of just first time he got the ball. The blue team's defensive line was fantastic all night long. They got right through the offensive line, and you sit there and you're like, uh-oh, this is bad. They still lose yardage on it, but you're reminded, Tiffin Kazukis is a heck of the way that Dave described him was slimy. And I was like, I've never heard him described that way, but that is the exact right way. He's very slippery. He gets away very easily. And it was a lot of fun being reminded of all these guys' strengths. And I'd seen a lot of these guys play. And it was like, yep, that's how that guy plays. That's how that guy plays. The touchdown from Gibson Fager, I was like, I've seen that exact throw a million times. It was on a rope, perfect in place. There were so many things that was just like, man, this is so cool to be able to see this one more time because I don't know if I'll be able to see it ever again.
I believe the Hamilton County kid was Caleb Carson.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, and so he was able to come away with the defensive player of the game.
He's huge
there.
And he is very good. Again, I don't know if he's going somewhere, but if he's not, someone's missing out because he's a great defensive end. He should be able to play at one level.
So with football All-Star game in the books, we had some area kids play in the IBCA All-Star basketball game. That's in Pontiac, which is even further away than state softball. And so we saw a couple Pinckneyville kids play pretty well. We had Mr. Tripp from Goreville playing, so we had several area kids play up there.
Cade Brooks did double duty by playing Friday night and then going up to Pontiac on Saturday and playing. Yeah, so I was talking with his dad, and I was letting him know, I if there's any, because I do for Murfreesboro, obviously, I was like, if there's any highlights for Cade tonight, I'll make sure to send it to you. And he was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to see you after the game because we're going to have to immediately get in the car and go on up to Pontiac. And it's just like, man, doing double duty is tough. But specifically for the Tripp kid, he's just thinking about his journey of the past 6 months. to see him be in that All-Star game. Obviously, he was playing, the second half of the season as well, but to be able to see it happen still and see him get to that All-Star game, just fantastic for that, because he's just had a heck of a story for this year.
Right. And, and again, just an opportunity to represent your school, your community. And in that type of game, you're also representing the South.
That's right.
Exactly. And so you're getting to see players and people from all over the state. And, you want to be in that situation where you don't want to let your region down.
Right, yeah.
But we've got a couple other All-Star games coming up. The baseball All-Star game, the SIBCA All-Star game, is actually going to be on a Tuesday night. That's June 17th. So that's 1 week from tonight, which we're recording on a Tuesday this week. So June 17th will be the All-Star game. The senior game is going to be at 4, and the junior game is going to be at 7. If I was the seniors, I'd be like, "Hey, I want to play under the lights.
Yeah.
I don't want to play at 4." but that's the way the schedule will go for that. And then the SI Select All-Star softball game at Marion. And that's not going to be until mid-July. That's July 15th. And again, the IHSA ruling that has been in place is that underclass are able to play. That was a big controversial thing last year that a rule was passed, and then all of a sudden one of the things was, hey, the underclass kids can't play in these all-star games. That's been relaxed and figured out, and so I know the SIBCA posted that per Sam Knox from the IHSA, underclassmen can now play in all-star events. So there will be the underclass game there, and then also the underclass kids at the SI Select game.
Well, and the football and the basketball all-star games that happened this past weekend. I mean, the other side of it also is, a lot of those kids that are playing, that are going to the next level, they have those scholarships in hand one way or another. But if you don't have one, it is your final chance kind of to show to college coaches like, hey, I can play, I deserve a scholarship. And I would not be surprised if there's one or two, at least from the football all-star game, that maybe send that tape off and, a college coach says, you know what? I like what I see from this tape. I think we can do something here. You're going to have to work for it, but I'm willing to give you a spot, and it may not be, Division I or anything. It might be Division II, Division III. Could be a JUCO somewhere in Kansas or something. But there's more tape, and that's the other thing of, you get one more chance to suit up, but it could also be one more chance to impress somebody, and that's another great thing that a lot of people don't think about these All-Star games. Right,
and we talked about, that the IBCA All-Star game, Pinckneyville's AJ Keith was the MVP.
Yep.
And he played with Riley Bowersack. So those two real familiar with each other.
That's right.
Played in high school, played in this All-Star game, going to play together at Wren Lake.
Yep.
And so that's a neat dynamic for those two.
Without a doubt. It'll be I foresee some good days for the future for them, and it'll just continue the Pinckneyville legacy of just being a machine and churning out good players every single year.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this River Radio Sports Central podcast, powered by our friends at NovaCare Rehabilitation. For Matty V, I'm Darren Kinnard. We thank you so much for joining us. Have a great summer, everyone.